question for the lawyers. So we're on the record, we have everybody here. That gigantic stack of phone records. You marked it for ID purposes only. You said something about tying it up with, I guess, somebody from the phone company, or am I correct?
Harrington is an agent with Jupiter extract.
Okay. Are you planning on attempting to place all of that into evidence?
I don't have to, Judge. I printed the whole thing because I didn't know what the state's position would be, but I really just want to talk about the things that I tried to talk about.
Well, that's fantastic then. I was concerned that I was going to have to go through every text message inside that gigantic. So you're not attempting, no, I wasn't. I was trying to head something off at the pass. I should have shut up. Beautiful.
And two things. One, Ms. Ramsey's asked our assistants to get Agent Harrington here for her, which actually, I don't even know if she asked. We volunteered, and he called this morning. His plane got delayed. He's in Rhode Island due to weather, but he's flying in, I think, late tonight. He got a new flight, so he'll be here first thing in the morning. And then the swab issue. We received the FedEx package and the swab issue from yesterday. I don't know if you want to talk about it now or if Ms. Ramsey.
Show it to her.
I did.
Make sure we get the witness back.
Right.
I didn't tell her anything. I said it was between you all.
What time did we tell Fair?
Not tell her.
Okay, 10:30. I told her 10:30. So she'll be here. Cross-examination.
So
I think we're just for the purpose of the record, the state will ask just to admit those before trial.
just show it. And, okay, wonderful. Thank you. That takes care of that issue. So then we have redirected this witness.
Yes.
And then who's after that? Miss.
Mrs. CSI McClendon is being recalled briefly.
And then Miss Barr.
Yes.
And then Mr. Barr, and then we're arrested.
And then you're arresting.
Yes.
And we should be able to do that before noon, right?
Yes.
And defense, do you have anybody you could call if they get done within 45 minutes, a half hour?
This afternoon.
So you're not
We
ready?
have the doctor.
No problem. You're not ready to call a witness until this afternoon?
Right. And I think he actually, we notified him, but the state indicated that they had been speaking to him and that he indicated that he was available at 1. He hasn't indicated that for our office.
So is 1 o'clock correct?
I think
The doctor's asked if he could go in.
Did he say specifically he wants to go on at 1 or after 1?
He has to be after 1.
He said,
I thought it was at 1.
Let's clarify that because I'm very happy to break early for lunch and then start promptly
he
at
said,
1.
okay, can you see if I can go right after break at 1 p.m.? I'm at work today.
Yes.
Okay.
Wonderful. So let's rock and roll. Get this done. We can break early for lunch. And Ms. Ramsey, you got something in your hand.
I just want to show you the detective.
Okay, so you want the jury back.
The gun from the culvert.
Yeah.
You want the jury in when you do this?
Are you serious? She did show it to me. She showed it to me. Crochet.
I did.
She did.
Okay. Then I don't. We admitted it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, and then at 1 o'clock, the doctor, and then you have other witnesses to fill my time?
I only have 2 witnesses, which is the doctor and Harrington. And Harrington is, we notified him, but the state told me this morning that he was in Rhode Island.
Well, I mean, I'm just passing the message along. He called today and said his plane was delayed, and
I'm not faulting anybody.
we weren't calling him. The defense was. So.
And what is the purpose of calling?
For the phone records.
To do what with them?
Well, I want to admit those portions that we talked to War Fable about, including, frankly, the ones that he denied, saying he didn't remember them, didn't have a memory of them. So I need someone to talk about the extraction process.
Well,
This is the document.
that went to my original question, which was, did you plan on putting any of those in? And I thought your answer was no, but now it's yes. So I can put, I mean, you're not disputing that Harrington extracted it, et cetera.
I need to see, I didn't even, I'm not blaming her, but I didn't take a good look at what she marked for ID, because it was only for ID purposes. I mean, the bottom line, and I'm just taking a step ahead, if we're still on schedule to do closings on Thursday morning, does it matter if Harrington testifies Wednesday morning, or it matters for the jury, right?
That's all I was thinking about, that if we could somehow get an agreement on the admissibility of particular text messages, they could take the day.
Well,
The answer is no. The answer is no.
I mean, if she's going to do that through Harrington, we're also then going to put in Vasata and Stewart's short text exchange that day of the homicide. So if she agrees to that, then I think we'd be okay.
Okay, I'll let you all talk when we have a break and determine what you want to do.
Or Harrington testifies quickly Thursday morning, and we could close, I don't know, just a thought.
Everybody's gonna do what they gotta do. It's at the patience of Job. Now they're gonna change it. The patience of Job. Right? It's Job?
Yeah.
All right. So let's bring in the jury. All right, welcome back, jurors. We know where we are. Ms. Ramsey, you were done with your cross? Okay. Then I'm going to turn it back over to the state for redirect examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Detective Hirsch, you were asked on cross-examination about Mr. Vorpagel, and you were shown some photographs. You recall that?
Correct.
Okay. And it was well known at this point of the investigation that Mr. Vorpagel had guns and lots of guns and drugs in the house, correct?
Yes.
And there was ammunition for firearms as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Despite there being guns and drugs in the house, I believe you testified that Mr. Vorpagel consented to a search of his house, correct?
He did.
And there came a point that Mr. Vorpagel was subsequently arrested for the firearms and drugs in his house.
He was.
Okay. Was that investigation separate from this triple homicide investigation?
Yes.
Okay. You were asked about some of the items on the side of the road. That Honda, you said were the keys inside of the Honda?
They were.
Okay. And did that Honda in fact give out of gas?
Yes, it was out of gas.
Okay. Now, the BMW that was recovered at Paseos, in the Paseos neighborhood, I believe you testified that that vehicle was not registered to either Mr. Vasata nor Mr. Kasukos. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. But you recall seeing a business card belonging to a Luke Kasukos,
Yes.
okay, in the vehicle that you later learned was driven by Mr. Vasata, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and that BMW, is that the same BMW? I'll rephrase.
Everybody pause. As to leading, just rephrase.
Okay. Was there a business card recovered inside of the BMW?
Yes.
Okay. Was the business card of Luke Kasukos?
Yes.
Okay. And the vehicle that business card was recovered in, is that also the same vehicle, a BMW, that Christopher Vasata's driver's license or ID was found in?
Yes.
Okay. Over the course of your investigation, did you learn that Mr. Kasukos and Mr. Vasata were well acquainted?
Yes.
And at the point that you're searching the BMW, do you already know that Mr. Vasata was not an invited guest at 1105 Mohawk?
I did.
You were asked about items that were submitted to the DNA lab for testing, and you told us there can be multiple rounds, but there's only a certain amount of items you can submit, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and there were other items found inside of that BMW, would you agree with that?
Yes,
Okay. Based on your experience and training, did you submit the items that you believe might render or yield you information related to the homicides?
yes.
I want to talk to you about the search warrants that you said you did in this case. Are those used as an investigative tool during the course of an investigation?
They are.
Okay. And just because you submit a request to, I'll rephrase. When you submit or you are requesting for a search warrant, does that always lead to something of evidentiary value?
No.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
May.
Inside of that BMW, did you recover phones belonging to Marcus Stewart and Christopher Vasata?
I did.
Okay. Want to talk to you about Lucas Sukos.
Okay.
I believe at this point you've testified that you did, there was some investigation into Mr. Kasukos, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you were asked about, your question about surveillance footage, you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. In addition to surveillance footage, do you use cell phone records or cell phone towers as an investigative tool as well?
Yes.
Okay. And based on your investigation,
Overruled.
based on your investigation of reviewing the cell phone records and towers, did it show that Mr. Kasukos was home?
Pause. Overruled. You may answer.
It did show he was home, according to the phone records.
During the time of the homicides?
Correct.
Now, you were shown a stack of phone records or text messages, correct? You recall that just now?
Yes.
Okay. Are you able to say how many phones Mr. Vasata was using during this time frame?
No.
Okay. Did you learn that Mr. Vorpagel used multiple phones?
I did.
Overruled.
Did you recover multiple phones in Mr. Vorpagel's residence or observe multiple phones?
Yes.
On cross-examination, you were asked about communications between Vasata and Vorpagel and Henry. You recall that?
Yes.
Okay, and you confirmed that there was communication.
Yes.
Okay. Did you also pull Marcus Stewart's cell phone extraction?
Yes.
Okay. And was there communication with Vasata as well
There was.
at the time or near about the time of the homicides?
Yes.
Okay. May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
No further questions.
It's the first time you've asked. I'm going to give you a little leeway. Make it quick, though.
Detective, I just want to ask you about your statement that the phone confirmed that Mr. Kasukos was at home. And the phone actually doesn't confirm that, it just confirms that the phone is there, right?
Correct.
Okay. I mean, Mr. Vasata and Mr. Stewart, if we credit the investigation that they are at Mohawk Street and their phones are in the car, they didn't take their phones to the scene either,
Correct.
right? You also indicated that multiple phones were recovered at Mohawk Street.
Yes.
Okay, were they all extracted?
I'm not, I don't believe so.
Okay, nothing further.
All right. Now you may step down. Watch your step. State, who are you going to call?
McClendon recalling her.
You're going to recall CSI McClendon, please. All right, CSI McClendon, you know the drill.
Do you solemnly swear affirm that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
And you know where to go? Same rules.
Hi, just a few more questions. I'm going to show what's been marked as State's Exhibit, or, by the way, are you CSI McClendon?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 331, Composite A through D. Do you recognize those photos?
Yes.
And State moves 331 A through D into evidence at this time with permission to publish.
Any objection? Admitted.
CSI McClendon, when you were at the scene at Mohawk of the homicide scene, we talked about a fence. Is that correct?
Yes,
The fence there? Did you have an opportunity to look at that fence?
I did.
And let me show you 331A. Looking at this photograph, is this the fence that if you climbed over it, the street is there, Mohawk?
Yes,
Throughout that fence area, did you see what you determined to be bullet holes?
yes,
And just showing D and C. Throughout that fence, did you see defects such as this that's marked?
I did.
As well as in the air conditioner?
Yes,
Is Mohawk Street the scene of that homicide in Palm Beach County?
it is.
I asked you that earlier, I just wanted to make sure. And I'd like to show you what's already been admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit 5. Just the front of the house. Just familiarize yourself with this. Is that one of the photos of the home?
Yes,
We talked earlier, a few days ago, about stanchions, or these yellow markers that you placed down there. Is that correct?
yes,
And did you place some of these yellow markers to designate the area where you saw blood on that driveway pavement?
yes.
And blood BLS, what's that stand for?
Blood-like substance.
And blood-like substance number 3, is that notated by the stanchion right here?
It is.
And is that the BLS number 3 at the crime scene that you took a swab of and submitted to the DNA lab?
Yes.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Any cross on that? Good morning, Mayor.
Hi.
The first pictures that you were shown, those were pictures of defects in the fence that runs along the east side of the backyard of the 1105 Mohawk.
Correct.
And those would be, I guess, consistent with being struck by a projectile from a firearm.
Yes.
And you didn't recover any projectiles from those defects, correct?
I didn't. I don't think CSI Bryant did.
And obviously, you can't determine which firearm fired the projectile that struck that fence.
Correct.
And of course, you can't determine who fired the firearm that struck the fence.
Correct.
No other questions, ma'am? Any redirect?
No, sir, thank you.
All right, you may step down. Watch your step. State, call your next witness.
We have the continuation of Mary Barr.
Okay, Mary Barr is back.
And we'll just read 3-2. Just briefly.
And we were, the state has an additional question. Remember, we were getting ready to start cross, but she's going to ask an additional question or two, and then the defense is going to have their opportunity to cross-examine the witness. Just raise your right hand again. We'll swear you in again. Make it official. And good morning. Welcome back. Watch your step. Once you get in there, grab that microphone where it's comfortable for you.
Hello, how are you? Just a few more questions. If I'm going to be approaching the witness. Let me show you what's been marked for identification purposes. This states Exhibit 332, and let me know if you recognize that exhibit.
Yes.
And how do you recognize that?
My initials, my ID number, the description, date, time, case number, and then my initials and date on the tape.
All right, are these swabs from a rifle that you swabbed at the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office crime lab within the firearms unit?
Yes.
Related to this case?
Yes.
The state moves 332 into evidence.
Any objection? Admitted.
Now, when I say if these are swabs that you swabbed the rifle, is this the, if I could see that assault rifle just quickly. Are these the swabs from State's Exhibit 295 that we spoke about the other day?
Yes.
And let me just show you, can you see it from here?
Yes.
All right, and you told us about swabbing the, you told us about swabbing the frame and the receiver and the trigger guard, correct?
Yes.
When you were swabbing those areas, did you notice any blood on the assault rifle?
Can I just refer to my notes to see if I made any notes? No, I did not.
Thank you. I have no further questions at this witness.
Cross-examination.
You didn't look at the swabs under a microscope, though?
No, I do not. I just take the swabs and then submit them.
Right, so when you say that you didn't see any blood on the swabs or the rifle, it's because there was invisible blood that is far above the 50 cells required for DNA?
I did not see anything.
Okay. And can I see that exhibit for 1 minute, please? So this particular packaging, the States 332, contains a number of items, right?
Yes.
Okay, it says trigger guard, frame receiver, rifle magazine, cartridges, right?
Yeah.
These are all swabs?
Yes.
Okay, all in the same package?
Yes, they're all in their own separate envelopes, and all of those envelopes go into the evidence bag.
Okay, and this is your seal?
Yes.
And Mr. Costa's?
I don't know whose seal that is.
Not sure of her seal, but that's a PBSO seal.
It could, yes.
Okay. And so there's another sticker on here that says Bodie. What is that?
I don't know. That's not part of the PBSO lab, so I guess from when they sent it to Bodie, I don't know what that's from.
Bodie's a different DNA lab.
Yes.
Okay, and do you have any results about that?
No, I don't receive results.
Okay. I have any questions.
Any redirect?
Just briefly. Sir, may I have a pair of scissors, please? You were asked a question whether or not these swabs were sealed in the same bag, and you stated yes, but then they're in separate bags within the bag. Is that correct?
Yes.
In opening this exhibit, if I could approach, just, is this what you mean by separate bags?
Yes.
So this, what you've listed as Exhibit 28B, Submission 14, it says firearm receiver.
Yes.
Are these swabs separate from the receiver? And then A is the trigger guard, correct?
Yes.
And then cartridges, and then rifle magazine, correct?
Yes.
All right. And Bodie Lab, are you familiar with it being a DNA lab?
Yes.
Does Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office DNA lab, to your knowledge, test fired cartridges or casings?
Not to my knowledge.
That they don't?
They do not.
Do they sometimes send it out to see if somebody will do it?
Yes.
I have no further questions, thank you.
All right. You may step down, watch your step.
Okay.
The state calls Dina Contry quickly.
I see the lawyers at the bench.
Yes.
All right, Dunk. I know you've heard me say this, but watch your step. Once you get around the screen, if you'd raise your right hand, face Mr. Clerk for me. All right, you'll have a seat up there. Watch your step. And then once you get in there, get that microphone close for me. And tell us your full name and spell your last name for the jurors, please.
Dina Marie Contry, Contri.
Okay, state. It's okay.
You told us your name. How are you employed?
I am a shareholder of the firm Sellers, Marion & Bocci as an attorney.
You're an attorney here in town?
Yes, ma'am.
And was Brandy El-Salhi your sister?
She was.
Back in February of 2017, do you know what kind of car she was driving?
Yes, ma'am. It was a black Nissan Sentra.
I'm going to show you what's already been admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit 11. Do you recognize that as being her car, your sister's car?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Just like publish it. Point to it quickly. This car, you pointed to the dark colored car.
Yes, ma'am.
State has no further questions. Thank you.
Any questions? All right. Ms. Country, you may step down. Watch your step. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if the court could agree or state stipulation, the state and the defense agree to.
And both sides have agreed that the identity of the victims is established and stipulated to by the parties, so they don't have to call a witness to say that body belongs to that person. That's all been stipulated to. Does everybody understand? Okay. With that stipulation then being placed on the record, state?
State rests at this time.
State rests. The state's finished. So I have to take up some legal issues outside your presence, and the defense is going to call a witness, and we got to do some things. So remember me warning you, things are going to get bumpy. So you see me stuttering. That's because I feel bad that we're not fully maximizing your time, and but it's not for a lack of effort on everybody's part. There's a lot of things going on outside of your presence, and some of it I'll fill you in on later when I can, but right now I don't think it's appropriate, so I'm not. And just ask you to bear with me. I know this has been a long process, and we've been going at it, some of us, since May 31st. If my memory serves me correctly. I think, Mr. Schroeder, you were in that first group, right? So it's 10:50 now. And I know Ms. Higgs likes a short lunch because she's been trained to do 20-minute lunches as a school teacher. But we're going to take a 2-hour lunch. We're going to ask you to be back around 12:30 12:45 or so, but not expected to really actually start until 1 o'clock. But let's have you back in case we can get started earlier. And we're going to stay here. The lawyers, I'd ask you to stay, and we're going to do some legal work outside of your presence. So turn your pads upside down. Don't talk about the case. We are coming down the home stretch. And I'll see you back at about 12:45. Thank you again. All right, so you want to make any motions now, defense?
I may lay out my arguments. I'm going to move this podium just a little bit.
If you need a hand, Deputy Dunkley, he'll help you. Take your time.
Thank you. Our argument is that the state has not established a prima facie case of all the elements of all the 5 charges as charged, considering the evidence in the light most favorable to the state. If I may start with counts 1 through 4, which is 3 counts of 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted first-degree murder. For these counts, the greatest concern at this juncture is the issue of the proof of premeditation. All the evidence presented by the state on this issue of premeditation has been circumstantial. There's no confession, no text indicating a plan specific to first-degree murder. So I think we turn to whether or not there is a reasonable hypothesis of innocence. In the light most favorable to the state, the evidence purports that Mr. Vasata and others parked in the Paseos neighborhood and went to 1105 Mohawk armed, wearing dark clothes. This is consistent with many other crimes wherein the perpetrator is armed, for example, for a confrontation, and does not want to get caught. There's nothing about that scenario that's been presented by the state's evidence that's specific to the intent of first-degree premeditated murder. Or any specific evidence that negates the reasonable hypothesis that Mr. Vasata's intent was to confront some of the individuals who were at 1105 Mohawk, and that confrontation turned into a shooting, even though that was not the original intention. In the charges where the state is asserting that Mr. Vasata did not actually kill the person, but was guilty as a principal, the state has additional elements that they must establish a prima facie case of because of the 2 elements of the principal theory. And again, the issue is that there's no direct evidence that Mr. Vasata had the conscious intent that another commit a premeditated murder. If I may turn to count 6, the count of grand theft auto, Judge. Again, the state's evidence for the specific intent that's required for a grand theft auto, one of the elements, is totally circumstantial. Their evidence is that Mr. Vasata was shot at the time of the taking of the Honda. He was gravely injured, according to their evidence, and couldn't even walk, and others picked him up and put him into the Honda, and then later dumped him out of the car at the Paseos neighborhood. He was incapacitated and had no agency over his body or the location of his body at this point. Not only does the state's evidence fail to provide any direct evidence of a specific intent to prove the crime of grand theft auto, it actually supports the reasonable hypothesis that Mr. Vasata did not intend to steal the Honda and was carried into and dumped by those who may have had a specific intent to take the Honda. Judge, I'll leave it there.
State, you want to respond?
Yes, briefly, the proof of premeditation regarding the first-degree murders as well as the attempted first-degree murder. Obviously, the state does not have to lay out a detailed plan that happened months in advance. However, the facts speak for themselves in this case regarding that plan. The perpetrators parked almost a mile away. They came under the cloak of darkness, going through back roads, most likely through that FP&L deserted footpath. They brought firearms. They brought ammunition. They were wearing dark clothing. When I say they, I'm including, obviously, Christopher Vasata. Per Mr. Vorpagel, there was immediate shooting. One comment was made, immediate shooting. There was no attempt to mediate or anything of that nature. Chris Vasata's DNA is found on an assault rifle, excuse me, on a black hoodie, on gloves, on a T-shirt. It's clear his intent was to go into that backyard and participate in the shooting. Christopher Vasata was also found with a .40 caliber magazine in his pants very shortly after the homicides. Dr. Joost stated that she would expect for the headshots to Sean Henry, if an assault rifle had been used for those, she would have expected to see much more damage to the brain, which she did not see. Regardless of whether Christopher Vasata even shot, doesn't matter. He's still a principal to this, but it's the state's contention that he, in fact, did participate in the shooting and most likely dropped that .40 Glock when he himself was caught in the crossfire of his own co-perpetrator to these murders. We've got ties between Vasata and Stewart in the DNA. Their phones were found together. The getaway car, the BMW, parked a mile away, had Chris Vasata's driver's license, airline tickets, credit card. Regarding the grand theft auto, the circumstantial evidence shows the plan always was to steal a car. These men came on foot, including Mr. Vasata. They snuck up into Vorpagel's house. They certainly knew that they would probably get caught if they ran away, that once police came upon hearing that firearms, that they were going to get caught in a net of police officers if they were on foot. So it's the state's contention, even though Mr. Vasata couldn't walk probably, the plan always was to steal Sean Henry's car or somebody's car and use as a getaway from that scene. So the state has proven the elements of all crimes at this point.
All right, I deny the defense's motion. Now, so the scheduling issues. So I made a deal with Ms. Howitt, the defense team, and the state about sequestration and how if I agreed that I would do it a certain way, that they would agree to waive sequestration. And I said, I promise you I'll do that. And I'm not going to break my promise. Just want to massage the issue. If you just say, Judge, we want to do it on Thursday, then we're going to do it on Thursday. If I could get, I mean, we've established ad nauseum that both Vorpagel, Kasukis, Mr. Vasata, it's no secret. They were selling and buying drugs, and I mean, so I don't know what the exchange is because I haven't seen the text messages myself that are in that gigantic stack. But I'm not so sure that there's any there's no secret there. Now there may be some specific exchanges that the defense wants in, and I respect that. But I'd ask both sides to see if they could talk about just agreeing to it, and we save having to wait for Mr. Harrington. Now, with that being said, I'm not going to force anybody to do anything. With that being said, if we could do that, we'd have the doctor testify at 1, we could admit the text messages, and we could just change our schedule to do closing arguments. Everybody would have a short day today. We'd be done by, I suspect, 2 o'clock. I don't know how long the doctor would take, but an hour. And then everybody would have all afternoon and tonight, just as if it was our other plan to do it on Thursday, and we could go to closing arguments on Wednesday, and we could pick up some steam. I'm not going to break my promise, and if that's what you tell me you all want, either side. So if anybody objects and says, Judge, we can't talk it out and we can't do it, then I'm going to be quiet. I think there's some grounds here for you guys to at least talk about it, and then we could do closings on Wednesday and help these people out who have been so generous with their time. State what's your position on the suggestion at this juncture, that you'll at least talk about it.
Yeah, I'll talk to Ms. Ramsey. There's one important, if she's going down that road, which she is with the text messages, we were going to...
You want something as well?
So we need to see exactly what she's doing.
Okay.
Your cards.
And defense, and I'm not bypassing anybody at the table. I just keep talking to Ms. Howitt for some reason.
I'm not doing ours.
I get it.
We also have the charge conference,
We
though.
just do what Ms. Howard said.
Yeah, in my dreams.
So we have that charge conference, too.
Absolutely. I'm going to get started on it in about 5 minutes.
Can we just talk, we need to talk about it at lunch to see what kind of time they need for,
Absolutely. Can we make a run at least discussing our charge conference right now?
right now.
Did you,
There's a couple of specific things that they insisted on.
Ms. Mixon, did you forward a packet to me?
I will do that right now.
And can you send it to the same email that you sent that preliminary instruction? Send it to mine, and I'll print it right here.